Washington, D.C. Over the past several weeks, Trump has stopped at nothing to dismantle our government. We as Americans are seeing an unprecedented and terrifying. Trump is expanding his authority through executive orders in ways that should shock and concern every American in this country. These actions have spurred 129 different lawsuits, most of which have resulted orders against Trump, and that is because they've been illegal executive orders. And Trump is showing a breathtaking willingness to defy judges' orders. His latest agenda has targeted more government agencies. He started trade wars with Mexico, the European Union, with Canada, with China. He's gutted tens of thousands of Americans from the federal workforce. He's emboldened Putin and Netanyahu and has ramped up his anti-immigration agenda. His actions to decimate the federal government have been severe. Today, Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education.
Boo!
They have already gutted 50% of its staff. This will be catastrophic for kids all over this country, especially kids with disabilities and low-income kids. The Department of Education is responsible for 11% of the K through 12 funding nationwide. This oversees grants, student loans, special education services. They support schools with large number of low-income students, and they enforce anti-discrimination laws. Minnesota receives over $2,000 per student from the federal government. Minneapolis public schools are already facing $83 billion in deficit this year. Erasing these necessary funds will make the shortfall even dire, and it will harm students with disabilities and those who come from low-income families. So let's be clear. Trump does not have the authority to do this. The Department of Education was created by Congress, and Congress has not given Trump the authority to destroy it. Similarly, he is going after the Department of Veteran Affairs by planning to cut 83,000 jobs.
Boo!
This will cause severe damage to VA healthcare infrastructure. 90% of the VA's workforce is dedicated to providing healthcare, and these cuts would worsen the already long waiting times and staffing shortages that makes it hard for our veterans to already access care. His plans to cut from vital veteran safety program nets. Over 400,000 veterans are uninsured, and nearly 10% of all veterans rely on Medicaid for their health care. Republicans, of course, are planning to make massive cuts to Medicaid.
Boo!
They are planning $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. Republicans are also planning to cut food stamp programs like SNAP, with 1.2 veterans relying on these benefits. Veterans are already overrepresented in our homeless population. Slashing housing programs would worsen food security, homelessness, and access to health care and medication for our veterans. I think most of us in this room agree that healthcare is a human right.
Yes.
That food and housing are a human right.
Yes.
The cuts that Republicans are proposing to Medicaid and SNAP and housing will literally kill people, plain and simple.
God forgive us.
But when Republicans have abandoned veterans, it's hard to imagine who they will be willing to protect. All of this is happening for one simple reason: to take these resources away so that they can put money in the pockets of the billionaires, the corporations, and the foreign corporations who have put them in power and who have bought a seat at the table.
Yep.
Last week, a federal judge ruled that Trump had illegally fired thousands of workers, and he has ordered them to immediately be rehired. Several judges ruled that Musk had unconstitutionally gutted U.S. aid. In February, another judge blocked Trump's funding freeze. This is true for case after case that has come before a judge appointed by every president. And how has Trump responded? By trying to impeach them.
Let's impeach him.
Musk has maxed out donations to Republican members of Congress that are driving these impeachment offers. I can't think of anything more unconstitutional, more harmful to our constitutional democracy than impeaching judges for upholding the goddamn Constitution.
Get it. Get it.
This is a Republican Party that has refused to impeach judges that have violated ethics. These are the same Republicans who have refused to impeach judges who have had people who have business in front of them, pay for their children's school, pay their mortgage, but they want to impeach judges that are upholding the Constitution. And they are supposed to be constitutional conservatives. I think not. So many of you can follow these lawsuits along by Googling Trump litigation tracker and make sure that you are seeing a complete list of these lawsuits. You have likely also seen that Trump has proceeded with tariffs directed at some of our most important allies. Many of his talking points center on the supposed unfairness of a trade plan that he himself negotiated under the US-Mexican-Canada agreement. You can't make this up. Trump's strange obsession with Canada seems to be driving part of this. Here in Minnesota, we have about $22 billion trade with Canada. And alone in the 5th District, it's about $600 million in goods and services trade with Canada every single year. That makes up about 6,500 jobs that are linked to that trade in Canada alone. Trump has openly suggested that his intent to hobble Canada's economy and force them into becoming part of the United States. It should go without saying that this is absurd and unacceptable way to treat an ally. But we also know in this room, we're very smart. We understand that tariffs are taxes. That they make everyday goods more expensive, they reduce purchasing power, and they disrupt our supply chains. Trump's tariffs will make everything more expensive. It means that it would make cereal more expensive because wheat would go up that we import from Canada. It would make housing more expensive because of lumber. It means our energy will become more expensive. It would become more expensive for us to buy vehicles. So no amount of him lying to the American people changes this truth. The EU and Canada's response makes it clear that the reckless trade policies have real consequences for working Americans. And we can't let that happen.
No.
And just like last week, the EPA took extraordinary steps to roll back environmental protections and climate policies.
Whoa.
We know that this would lead to more deaths from asthma, heart attacks, and toxic exposure. It would eliminate climate policies that helped ensure the US's leadership in the transition to a green economy, and it will lead to more devastating storms across the country and the world. And it would only delay a transition to renewable energy that will happen with or without our leadership. And last week, Congress, with the Republican majority, voted to give Trump and his co-president Elon Musk even more power by passing the continued resolution to fund the government.
Whoa.
Now, let's be clear. A government shutdown would be horrible for the Americans. But I could not, in good conscience, support a bill that would reduce congressional oversight, send more money for deportations, cut staff at the Social Security Administration, and eliminate programs for veterans. And I am disgusted that several Senate Democrats gave up our first point of leverage. So join me in thanking our senators, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith,
Yeah.
who did the right thing and voted against this disastrous Republican CR. Over the weekend, Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act.
Boo.
This is the first time in our nation's history that this law has been used outside of war. We knew this was coming, which is why I introduced the Neighbors Not Enemies Act to repeal this outdated law, because I knew the risk it poses in the hands of someone like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
This old law allows Trump to expel people from our country based on their nationality alone, not a crime they have committed, just by claiming that they have invaded the United States. We don't know the charges or evidence or even the identity against the 238 people that Trump has deported over the weekend. But we do know that the judge ordered Trump not to proceed, yet he went ahead anyway. Trump is openly disobeying judicial orders. He is ignoring the law that Congress has passed and creating a constitutional crisis by attacking our Constitution. We know that this is just the beginning of Trump's plans on immigration. This administration detained and for a while disappeared Mahmoud Khalil, a lawful permanent resident, for participating in pro-Palestinian protests. No criminal charges have been brought forth. He's been a U.S. resident with legal rights in this country. We've also seen U.S. citizens and valid U.S. visa holders detained for questionable reasons. He's rolled back the legal status of thousands of people, including Ukrainian refugees who arrived here, documented, and who have been working here legally.
Slava Ukraine! Slava Ukraine!
It has been clear to many of us that Trump was not going to focus only on those with criminal records. He's coming after any and every immigrant he can. And that's why it is so important that all of us know our legal rights. When you take stock of everything that Trump has done over the last 2 months, it is clear what's happening. Trump is a wannabe dictator. He will
Emperor!
continue to ignore our Constitution, our laws, and the checks and balances that have been the bedrock of our country for 250 years. Republicans in Congress are unwilling to challenge Trump. They have abandoned their oaths to protect the Constitution and our society to reckon with this chapter in our history for generations. Judges are constantly targeted by the mega universe, with some of my colleagues already trying to impeach judges for the rulings that they have made. It is only a matter of time before their verbal attacks result in physical violence against judges like we've seen before. Across the world, countries are seeing the United States fall. They are seeing Trump trying to annex our ally, Canada, raid Zelensky in the Oval Office while he cozies up to Putin. They are seeing us abandon foreign aid, which for a generation has widely been regarded as the most important diplomatic work the US does.
Soft power.
People are starving to death as we speak, while food rots in warehouses across this country for no reason other than Trump wants it.
God forgive us.
This betrayal is not something we will recover from quickly, but we will do whatever we can. This is what the collapse of our constitutional democracy looks like. This moment in our history requires all of us to speak out and to show up.
Amen.
For all of you to keep posting on social media, to keep going on protests, to keep calling your members of Congress. Make sure your family and friends who are represented by Republicans are calling their elected officials. Make sure they are registering to vote. Submit comments on the proposed rule changes. Find an organization that's doing work that you can work and volunteer with. Speak out in every way you can, especially if you or the organization you work for are personally impacted. We cannot normalize what is happening. And I repeat that. We cannot normalize what is happening. Because nothing about what we are seeing is normal. We cannot let our fear of retribution stop us from speaking out. We cannot comply with Trump's efforts to roll us back to segregation, to discrimination, or even worse. We need to fight for our country like our country depends on it. Because we deserve a democracy that works for us, run by people who respect their oath of office, respect our Constitution, and respect the institutions that give it its strength.
We fight! We fight! We fight!
So before we do the Q&A, I want to remind you that our office serves as your liaison